Welcome to the IoT Podcast Cybersecurity Mini-Series Special. I'm your host, Harry Jones, Embedded Talent Specialist at 5E Tech. Today I'm joined by Ahddoud, Founder and Chief Information Security Officer at Chameleon Cyber Consultants. In the episode today, we discuss how organisations are struggling with the complexity of their environments and why the introduction of AI is a double-edged sword. We then get into how it can help address complex challenges, but also be part of the problem of that complexity. Hi Mo, and welcome to the IoT podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. So just to start with really, would you just be able to tell us a little bit about sort of yourself, your background, and a bit about Chameleon as well?
Yeah, sure. So my background is previously in the military. So I was in the army for 10 years.
Sure.
And when I left, I looked to transfer some skills that I had and found that I couldn't find any of those transferable skills. So I ended up moving into IT. So from IT, I was on initially the help desk, desktop support, server support, and then eventually found myself in the firewall team. And then from the firewall team, there was a natural transition into security.
Sure.
So I was fortunate enough to move into security before it became fashionable. And at the time I was working for BAE Systems. So I've worked in the defense sector. I moved across from there into media. So I worked at Universal Studios, which was really interesting. And then from there moved into critical national infrastructure, where I was the CISO for the largest gas distributor in the UK. And then since then, I've been working as an interim CISO for private equity firms before forming Chameleon Cyber Consultants. So I'm the founder and senior consultant at Chameleon, and we do everything around supporting, providing guidance, and providing security monitoring for our customers.
Just out of my interest then really, so are there any like sort of particular customer base that you tend to support at Chameleon, or is it just really broad in general?
Yeah, it's broad. It's broad because different organizations often ask for different things. So if it's larger organizations, it's supporting digital transformation. So it's part of a much broader, bigger piece of work. If it's SMEs, what it's usually around is either doing some kind of security gap analysis or going in to help them with a specific requirement that they have. So yeah, they can vary in size and complexity.
Cool, interesting. So going back over we're nearly at the end of 2023 now, but over the last sort of year, what are maybe some of the biggest innovations or trends you might have seen in IoT and cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think today's been topically themed around AI.
Yeah.
And I think what we've seen there is that explosion really of the back-end integration and utilization of AI into all of the component systems across IoT and in business.
Okay, fantastic. And then looking forward to, say, 2024 then, do you continue to see that trend continuing as well? Maybe even expanding and growing more rapidly, and any other sort of trends around IoT and security?
Yeah, I think unfortunately we're still... organizations are still struggling with the complexity of their environments. And I suppose the introduction of AI can be described as double-edged because it can help address some of those complexity challenges, and it can also be part of the problem of that complexity. So, and I think where that will land is still unknown. So that confusion around, that complexity, I think, is what is still going to remain for many organizations.
Sure. And then with like the sort of double-edgedness of it, then is that sort of going to come down to the people who are actually using it and who can develop with it the fastest? So people who are going to be using it for the cybersecurity side of things versus those who might be using it for exploitation and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a slightly different perspective on this.
Okay.
If we kind of have a look at generally what a lot of AI can do, is it can just do things faster than can currently be done at the moment. And what it can also do is it can bring in additional components. So something, again, which was significantly complex and time consuming can be reduced in time. That aside, I'm not sure that significantly changes the dial on what the impact of that will be for the organization. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
whereas traditionally today you're facing threats where it may have taken the attacker a long time to put those component parts together and hit you with them. Tomorrow they're going to be able to do that faster.
Yeah.
What that impact is to you isn't going to materially change because you're not going to see that. And I think, again, what we'll see is this continued arms race where the security industry will look to try and compete against that. It's the same as we have today. Malware gets created, we detect the malware, we block the malware. New variations get created, it gets stopped. So my expectation is that arms race will evolve with AI.
Mm-hmm.
AI tooling will allow them to create new technologies to exploit. And again, we will use AI in a composite part to try and protect against what that evolution is. I think going back to the very fundamental principles of what that means for organizations around, are you informed? Are the executive teams informed around the risks to their organizations? Do they have assurance around the protections that they've got in place are correctly in place? And are they prepared that if it all goes wrong, they've got a plan? That doesn't change. So there's some consistent parts that will remain for the companies. But I allude back to my first point, which is complexity kills everything. And that's unfortunately where we're heading towards.
Okay, sure. Fantastic. And then, the final question would be, what are your sort of thoughts surrounding the IoT in the era of artificial intelligence? I think we pretty much covered quite a lot of that as well. So,
well, I think the key part for me still remains education. And there's an educational part, which I think isn't being prioritized by a lot of organizations. So we are entering the world of AI. And there's also another perspective that we have, which is that we're already in it. Okay, if you're using chatbots, that's AI. If you are looking at fraud detection on your banking, that's already using AI.
mm-hmm.
You're probably not even aware of it, but some of the services that you consume, they are doing customer retention statistics on you and predictive analysis around what you're going to do, how you're going to use the product. That already exists today. One of the real examples that we had recently was with a company that we were working with where the HR department was looking to adopt part of a AI plugin. And the way that this was going to work was, I think it was actually supporting the marketing team, but it came through HR. And it was around the way that it was going to take customer data, it was going to analyze that specific customer data, and it was going to regurgitate it back in a way that I think was going to prioritize for the business where the low-hanging fruit was from a marketing perspective. Or there was some real genuine excitement from the business around what this product could do. Mm-hmm. When we went to review what that product how that product worked, the vendor was actually quite vague around understanding what the component parts of it, right, where that data was going to be held, where it was going to be stored. And we worked through that, and it's great because I think there is a bit about being informed. And if you're informed and you understand it, the organization is entitled to make risk judgments that say, do you know what? If it happens, we'll deal with it. But actually, we've got an opportunity to break into a new market, and we're going to do innovative stuff, and we'll accept the risk. Completely understand that. And to support that, what we wanted to do was we wanted to introduce a new AI policy. So the AI policy was something that's completely new, mm-hmm, something that people are not familiar with. And one of the challenges that support that is some of the terminology that we use. So for example, we use things such as AI as a catch-all term for artificial intelligence. That includes ChatGPT, machine learning, large language models, and other sort of subsets of what actually makes up AI. Mm-hmm. So what the legal team did was they had a first go at writing out what this AI policy would look like. And the AI policy ended up being really heavily lent towards ChatGPT. And so there was an education piece there to explain to the legal team and also to the rest of the business that ChatGPT isn't AI. AI is at a higher level. And what we needed to do was ensure that within the policy, we wrote it in such a way that if it was ChatGPT version 3, 4, or Chat XVT that comes out next year or another version of that,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to change the policy. The policy remains the same. Everybody needs to be clear about if you are engaging with suppliers who are bringing in that technology, you need to ask that question. We need to validate what that connection is going to be. And then we need to be informed, as I said, and prepared for anything that happens on there. So I think there's some real cases there of what we're seeing is where we think AI is still in the future and it's going to transform the world.
Yeah.
We actually find it's actually there today. And if you're not using it in your business, you're consuming it in some way. So I think that, again, is a point for all businesses to be aware of, that, to try and get ahead of the curve is to start thinking of these things now.
Fantastic. They're really insightful. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
For anyone, any of our listeners or anyone who's watching this podcast as well, where would they be able to find a bit more information about Chameleon and a bit about yourself, really? Any socials or?
Yeah, I'm not as hip as I should be on social media. So I am just on a web platform and on LinkedIn under Chameleon Cyber Consultants.
Fantastic. Brilliant.